This video is all about using the grid overlay on your camera. There is a grid overlay that is on top of my video. It's called the rule of thirds, basically. So you got 3 going this way and you got 3 going this way. There are some general rules that you can use in the rule of thirds. Number 1, you can make sure that your subject is lined up on one of the lines. So you'll notice that when I look at the camera, I'm not really on the center line. You'll also notice that I am kind of weighted over to one side of the camera. The reason for that is a personal preference because I don't like being dead center in the camera. Some reason I just can't do it. It's not right for me. Now, this rule of thirds doesn't have any hard, fast rules that you absolutely have to follow, but it does come with some guidelines. Always make sure that a subject's eyes are on one of the thirds. You'll notice that as I sit up and move around, my eyes stay roughly on this line right here. Sorry, I have to look over here so I can see what I'm doing. But my eyes stay roughly right here on this line, right? You'll notice that my head, if I sit up straight, it goes out a little bit, but if I sit down like I'm normally recording, then my eyes stay right here on the center line. You'll also notice that the majority of my body is in 1/3 of this frame. Now, we get into some other stuff in my Lightroom course about cropping and framing, but since this is just a basic camera overview, I'm just kind of trying to glaze the surface here so you get a rough understanding of it. But this overlay, this rule of thirds overlay, is going to help you tremendously in framing. You'll notice that if you pop this up on your screen, and how you get it is going to be different for your camera. There's about 100 different makes, models, and brands out there with 42 quadrillion different menu systems. When you get this on your live view on the back of your camera, the little LCD panel on the back of your camera, it is tremendously helpful. Now, for those of you that are shooting mirrorless cameras, you have the ability to pull this up on what is called your EVF, your electronic viewfinder. We talked about this in the camera tour. I showed you where it was. You can pull this grid up in the EVF, but you don't really have the option to see this grid through the viewfinder on a non-mirrorless camera, like on a traditional DSLR, because the light's coming into the camera, it's hitting the mirror, it's bouncing up into the viewfinder, and that's what you see. So you don't always get this grid, but you can pop up the live view, pull this grid up, and look at your scene, so you kind of have a rough idea to frame with it. One thing you'll find that by using the rule of thirds is that even when you can't see it, with enough practice, you'll see it. Your brain will just kind of understand that everything is chunked off into these thirds, and it will just kind of automatically start to make those compensations. However, that kind of vision only comes from practice. So it is very important that you practice using the grid overlay and the rule of thirds. Pick up your camera, go out. You don't even have to take pictures on this one. Just pull up the thirds overlay on your camera for the LCD if you have a DSLR, and put it up in the EVF if you have the electronic viewfinder if you have a mirrorless, and just practice looking at the world this way. Practice framing up shots using this grid overlay. All right, so that's the grid overlay. Once again, it's all about practice. Remember, there's some basic kind of guidelines, but there's no hard and steady rules that you absolutely have to follow. That having been said, get out there and practice. I will see you in the next video.